Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. 12-year-old Ethan was on the verge of wrapping up his trick-or-treating days. This would be his final year, and he wanted it to be memorable. He'd exhausted all the typical costumes, and this time, he desired something special, something that would be his crowning achievement. He had never won the best costume prize at the school party, but this year, he aimed to change that. Next year, he'd be in middle school, where most boys would consider such antics childish. While some girls still attended costume parties, they rarely went trick-or-treating anymore. His family party loomed as another farewell to dressing up. The older boys had long abandoned costumes, opting instead for practical jokes. The girls, however, participated just like the younger kids and even the adults. Ethan suspected the adults enjoyed costumes more than the children did, with their elaborate get-ups. One evening, as he watched TV with his sister Claire after their dad left for bowling, their mother joined them after finishing the dishes. "Mom, this is my last year for trick-or-treating, isn't it?" Ethan asked. "I suppose so. I can't recall ever seeing an 8th grader at my door on Halloween unless they were accompanying a younger sibling. Most do it just to get candy, and people tend to reward them with treats for helping out their parents," she replied. "The older boys don't dress up at Grandpa's party either, do they? I think they feel it's too childish. So, if I'm in 8th grade next year, I won't dress up either. If you do, the other boys will tease you. Remember when Charles wore his cowboy hat and boots to the party at 14? They made fun of him all night until he left early," Claire reminded him. "Yeah, I remember," Ethan said, his disappointment clear. "Are you getting somewhere with this, Ethan?" his mother inquired. "I just can't think of a good costume. Since this is my last year, I want something different and truly great. Let's see. We only have 3 weeks. So it needs to be something we already have. We only have your sister's old clothes since we bought her new ones for school," she suggested. "Mom, I can't go to high school in the same clothes I wore in middle school. How does this help me figure out your Halloween costume?" Ethan redirected, frustrated. "Well, you could dress as a girl. We have plenty of your sister's old clothes. Yeah, I'd love to help you look great. I could even lend you some of my jewelry and do your hair," Claire chimed in. "A girl? I'm not sure about that," Ethan hesitated. "Ethan," his mother said, "that's the best offer you'll get. I'm sure Claire has something that could make you look special." "I don't know. I think I'll try to come up with something else," Ethan said as he headed to his room. "Let me know if you change your mind," his mother called after him. On Friday after school, Ethan still had no ideas. He flopped onto the couch, clearly upset. "What's wrong, Ethan?" his mother asked. "I still don't have a good Halloween costume, and it's just 2 weeks away," he replied, exasperated. "Well, there's still the girl option. Do you really think I could look terrific dressed as a girl? Your sister said she'd help," she encouraged. "I really want to look great. I don't want to seem silly. I want to be the best girl a boy can be. It has to be so impressive that even those who know me will do a double take. If we find the right dress, I'm confident you can achieve that look. Your sister is willing to do your hair, and I'm sure she'll help you coordinate the outfit perfectly. But it won't matter if her clothes don't fit properly. That would be an obvious giveaway. Well, your sister is at Karen's house tonight. They're going to a football game after dinner and then staying over. But we can look at the clothes and check the fit if you're up for it. I have to do something. If this doesn't work out, let's keep it between us, okay? I'm not even sure I can go through with it, even if they fit." "All right, sweetie. Your father won't be back until 5:30, so we have some time. We won't mention it to him if you decide not to go through with it." In Claire's room, they opened her closet, and his mother pushed aside the new clothes. She took out several dresses Claire had worn to school last year and laid them on the bed. One by one, she held each dress up to Ethan, who felt a mix of discomfort and excitement. There was something taboo about it, yet oddly enticing. He felt both drawn to it and repelled, like the allure of forbidden fruit. His mother finally chose a blue dress with a boat neck, cap sleeves, and a full skirt. Ethan stood silently as she unbuttoned his shirt and slipped it over his head. She zipped up the dress and inspected the front. "Oh dear, we'll need to address the bust line," she said, quickly unzipping the dress and pulling it off him before he fully realized what was happening. She rummaged through Claire's dresser and found a bra. It had ridged cups that seemed to already suggest a feminine shape. "Here," she said, "turn around." He did, and she reached around him, slipping the straps over his arms and fastening it behind him. She turned him to face her and studied his chest. Then, she took out some stockings and placed one in each cup of the bra. "Let's try this again," she said, picking up the dress and putting it on him once more. After zipping it up, she began pulling it down over his hips. "You'll need to remove those pants, or the dress won't hang properly," she instructed. He hiked up the skirt, unfastened his jeans, and unzipped them, letting both the dress and his jeans drop at the same time. He pulled off one sneaker, stepping out of his jeans while losing a sock in the process, then repeated the motion with his other foot. Now standing in a dress, he felt a strange sensation. It was nothing like he had expected. He thought it would feel like wearing a bathrobe, but it was different in a way he couldn't quite articulate. Maybe it was the bra, he had never worn one with his robe. His mother stepped behind him so he could see himself in the mirror, arranging his hair in different ways. "I wish Claire were here. The dress fits perfectly, but I'm not great with hair. I go to the beauty salon every week, but back in high school, I had straight, flat hair. Thankfully, it was the 70s, and I could let it grow long and still be somewhat stylish. Claire could definitely work wonders with my hair." He really hoped she could. While the dress fit well, the rest of him still looked distinctly like a boy in a dress. "I'll need shoes," he said, trying not to dismiss the idea outright, though he wasn't fully sold on it yet. His mother retrieved some flats for him to try, and to his surprise, they fit better than the dress. Well, that objection was out the window. "We'll need to let Claire tackle your hair. She's amazing with makeup too. I'm sure a little magic from her will make a big difference. You have to let her give it a shot." "Okay. I'll let her try tomorrow, and I hope she lives up to your praise." "I need to start dinner," she said. "You can change and hang up the dresses." With that, she left him standing there, still in the dress and shoes. He turned back to the mirror, squinting and swaying slightly. He looked a bit like a girl, and the skirt brushed against his legs, which felt surprisingly good. He became aware of the emptiness between his boxers and the rest of the world, and a smile crept across his face at the thought of walking around school like this. Struggling with the zipper, he almost called his mother back, unable to reach the bottom, but then he lifted the dress slightly with one hand, allowing him to zip it down further with the other. After managing to get the dress off, he hung it in the closet. Still wearing the shoes and bra, he picked up the next dress. As he walked toward the closet, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. The dress was right in front of him, and he paused to hold it up against himself. It was a shirtwaist dress with 3/4 sleeves and a full skirt, buttoning down the front and made of lightweight material. Deciding to try it on, he unbuttoned it and stepped in. After fastening all the buttons, he looked in the mirror. With the light from the window behind him, he could see his silhouette through the dress. If he wore this one, a slip would be necessary. He understood why his mother had discarded it. The thought of wearing a slip sent a shiver down his back. It felt entirely too feminine. As he unbuttoned the dress to take it off, he paused to wonder, what would that be like? He had to find out. Remembering a slip in the closet, he let the dress fall to the floor, grabbed the slip, and put it on. Stepping back into the dress, he pulled it up and rebut-toned it. Looking in the mirror again, he noticed that the slip resolved the silhouette issue. He could just make out lace at the bottom of the slip, and the lace at the top peeked through as well. Turning to view his profile, he straightened his shoulders and laughed at the sight of a bust line on his chest. He walked to the window and then back to the mirror, watching himself as he moved. He looked pretty good except for his hair. His youthful face hadn't developed a strong masculine shape yet. He enjoyed how the dress swirled around the slip. Reluctantly, he took it off and hung it up next to the others. Crossing back to the bed, he picked up the next dress, which zipped up the back and had a tight skirt that hit just above his knees. He zipped it up as far as he could, then pulled up on the dress with one hand while grabbing the zipper with the other. Letting go with the first hand, he pulled the dress down and the zipper up at the same time. This one felt constricting and didn't fit well. He was supposed to have hips, but his figure was straight. The lower part of the dress was baggy. Struggling out of that one, he hung it up and tried the next. This dress was a straight shift, sleeveless with a boat neck. He dropped it over his head and examined it in the mirror. It would look better with some curves. He flounced back and forth in front of the mirror, preferring the full-skirted options over this one. He picked another from the closet. It was a short, full-skirted dress with layers of fabric and cap sleeves that buttoned up the back. Unbuttoning it, he stepped in and contemplated how to manage all those buttons. Starting at the top, he buttoned the first one and worked his way down until he couldn't pull the dress up any higher. Then he pulled it down and found he could easily reach the remaining buttons. Straightening the dress in front of the mirror, he smiled at its feminine look, rocking his hips back and forth as it swayed. The slip peeked out beneath, and he was amused by how much he liked seeing that lace, recalling how he admired it on the girls at school. Now, he was experiencing it firsthand with just a little movement. He tried each dress in turn, 7 in total, before quickly putting the slip back and tossing the bra back in the drawer. He pulled on his pants and shirt, picked up his shoes and socks, and returned to his room, feeling a wave of guilt. His mother had picked out the dress she thought he should wear and tried it on him, instructing him to hang it up with the others. She hadn't told him to try on the rest, just to hang them. He must have been in there for at least an hour and needed an excuse for his extended absence. Desperately scanning his room, he spotted his reading book on the dresser. He had fallen behind, so he picked it up, laid back on the bed, and began to read. Then he realized he'd need a reason for not having read much, so he laid the book on his chest and pretended to be asleep. He almost dozed off when he heard a knock at the door. Ethan, his mother called as she peeked into his room. "Oh Mom, I was trying to catch up on my reading and must have dozed off," he replied. "Well, dinner's about ready. You'd better wash up." On Saturday afternoon, Claire returned home. Ethan was at the table doing homework while his mother tidied up the kitchen after lunch. "Hi, Claire. Ethan decided to try out our suggestion for Halloween," his mother said. "Awesome. We'll need to pick out something nice for him to wear." "Well, I think I've found the dress. I had him try it on yesterday after school, and it fits really well. Your shoes fit him, too. He's a bit worried about his hair and makeup, but I assured him you could work miracles in that area." Ethan paused and listened. "I'm not so sure about this now. I looked like a boy in a dress, and that's not quite what I envisioned. So what are you planning for your costume?" Claire asked, giving him a challenging look. "Well, I don't know. I guess I'll have to let you try to make me look like a girl. But if you don't do a really good job, I'll have to come up with something else. Let's see what I can do. Come on upstairs," she said. Ethan followed her upstairs. She instructed him to remove his shirt, then took him into the bathroom to wash his hair in the sink. With a blow-dryer in hand, she began styling his hair. Although it wasn't overly long, it did cover his ears. She used brushes and combs, lightly spraying it with hairspray and teasing it before gently brushing it back down. Taking his chin in her hand, she turned his face from side to side. "You could use a little help," she said, picking up her mascara. She carefully stroked his lashes with the brush, then applied blush to his cheeks and smoothed it with a larger brush. Turning him to face the mirror, he looked really strange, completely different from how he had looked yesterday. This time, it was his face that seemed out of place on his boyish body. Claire led him into her bedroom, rummaging through the same drawer his mother had used. She pulled out the same bra, helped him put it on, and stuffed some stockings into the cups. "Which dress did Mom pick out?" she asked as she opened the closet. "That one," he said, pointing to the blue dress. Claire took it out and held it up to him. "It's a nice dress, but I'm not sure it'll have the wow factor. Try it on, and we'll see." He stepped into it and turned around for her to zip it up. "You should really do this yourself." "Girls do it all the time," she said, watching him walk. "The jeans are causing the waist to ride up, but I don't think this is the best we can do. You'll need to try on some others." She continued, unzipping the dress. "If all you wanted was to pass as a girl, this would work." He stepped out of the dress and handed it to her. She hung it up and began searching through the rest. "You need to lose the jeans." "Here," she said, handing him the slip he had worn yesterday. "Put this on and take off your jeans." She turned back to the closet while he complied. Once again, he stood there in a slip and bra, but this time, someone knew. He wouldn't get in trouble if anyone found out. She took out a dress and held it up to him. It was short and allowed the slip to peek out, but she shook her head and put it back. Next, she grabbed a fancy dress with a low-cut neckline and no sleeves. Dropping it over his head, she zipped up the back. The skirt was very full and fell in loose folds. He loved how it brushed against the slip when he walked. It felt even better than the one from yesterday. "Nope. To really look good, you'd need a lot more of a bust than we can stuff into a bra," she said, unzipping the dress. The next one had 3/4 sleeves and a side zipper, also featuring a full skirt. He liked it too, but she dismissed it, saying he didn't have enough hips. Off it came, soon replaced by the shirtwaist dress from yesterday. After a few turns around the room, Claire began digging through her closet again. Ethan knew this one wouldn't work either. "I know," Claire exclaimed, turning around quickly. She pushed the new dresses against the old ones and pulled out a garment bag. Laying it on the bed, she unzipped it. Inside was a burgundy dress that looked quite fancy. "I wore this to the 8th grade graduation dance last year. It's the only thing from last year that I'd consider wearing to a high school function," she said, holding the dress. "Jake Hawthorne kissed me while I was in this dress." She looked dreamy for a moment. The dress featured a high neckline and a low back, with a knee-length skirt that had built-in petticoats to give it volume. A sheer rose-colored fabric draped across the front at the neckline, continuing over the shoulder and down the back. Ethan remembered this dress. Seeing her in it had been the first time he thought his sister looked pretty. She unzipped it and had him step into it. As she zipped it up, he couldn't help but feel special, almost regal. Facing the mirror, he realized that while the other dresses had made him look like a girl, this one surpassed them all. He knew it was the one. Claire recognized the need for more work. "We'll need to redo your makeup. This dress deserves more than just a bit of mascara and blush," she said, tying the sash at the back. In the bathroom, she gathered all her makeup supplies. Draping a towel across his chest, she applied a cream all over his face, blending it well with a small sponge. Next, she used a light powder applied with a puff, followed by a large brush that he thought would remove the powder. She redid his mascara, framing his eyes with liquid eyeliner, then added some eyeshadow and darkened his eyebrows. After more blush, she finished with lipstick and decided to redo his hair. She went to her dresser and retrieved a large wooden box, returning with a bracelet and matching necklace. After another trip to the box, she produced a tiara. Placing it on his head, she led him to the full-length mirror. "Perfect," he nearly shouted. "I look like a princess." "You do. Don't you feel like one, too?" He did, kind of, but he didn't want to admit it. "I guess. I'm not really sure what a princess should feel like." Reaching into a pocket on the garment bag, she pulled out a pair of squash-heeled pumps. He slipped them on and quickly realized that even with such low heels, walking wasn't easy. She had him practice a bit, and soon he was able to walk steadily. "You have to promise to be extra careful in this dress," she warned. "Oh, I will. I won't run or roughhouse at all," he replied with a grin. "I'll be a perfect lady." Claire laughed. "You'd better be. Let's show Mom." Claire led the way downstairs. Ethan discovered that navigating the stairs required concentration. Claire made him wait in the hall before stepping into the family room. He heard her say, "It gives me great pleasure to present Her Majesty, the Princess of Selwood." With that, she gestured him in. He walked in and curtsied. "Oh, Ethan, you look amazing," his mother exclaimed. Just then, his father walked in from the garage workshop to see what all the commotion was about. "Kiki Momo. Looks like I have 2 daughters," his father joked. "When you told me he was dressing as a girl for Halloween, I didn't expect him to look this much like one," he added, glancing at his wife. "Well, he wanted something special for his last Halloween costume," she replied. "And Ethan, you've achieved that. Walk around and let me see how nice you look." Ethan walked to the window and back. "You look every inch a girl, and you make a very convincing princess. However, you still move like a 12-year-old boy. If he spends the rest of the day in the outfit, I think we can teach him to move more like a girl," Claire suggested. "That's a good idea. But maybe we should use another dress for practice. I'd hate to see him get that one dirty." "It has to be dry cleaned, you know," Mom agreed. Dad just shook his head and returned to the garage. Claire took him back to her room and put him in the dress with the buttons down the back. Back in the family room, Claire demonstrated how to walk. Ethan did his best to imitate her while his mother watched. They critiqued his walk, making him practice moving from room to room with them following. Then Mom had an idea. She went to her bedroom and brought back the video camera, setting it on a tripod to record him as he walked. Then she filmed Claire walking the same route. Occasionally, she would rewind the tape to let him watch himself. He could see the differences between him and Claire, and he kept trying again. Each time he watched the tape, he noticed improvement. After an hour, they began working on sitting and standing up. They brought in a kitchen chair and set the camera in front of it. He sat down and crossed his legs at their request. Mom laughed and stopped the recording. "Claire, maybe you should put on a dress and demonstrate for him," she suggested. Claire returned in a few minutes, sat for the camera, and crossed her legs. They played back the clip of Claire for him first, then rewound the tape to let him see himself, followed by Claire. Watching himself, he noticed his boxers were clearly visible when he sat, and even more so when he crossed his legs. In Claire's segment, there was no hint of her underwear. He tried again, focusing on keeping his legs together. He realized that when crossing his legs, it was better to cross his knees rather than his ankles. Another hour passed before he felt comfortable with that adjustment. "Oh, look at the time," his mom said. "I'll need you girls to help if I want dinner on the table on time." She led the way to the kitchen, assigning tasks as they went. Ethan set the table while Claire peeled potatoes, and their mom began preparing Swiss steak. Ethan was also in charge of making chocolate pudding, and together they made quite the team. Dinner was ready in just 45 minutes. At the table, Dad kept glancing at Ethan and shaking his head. Since he had made dessert, Mom had Ethan serve it. The conversation revolved around how much of a hit Ethan was going to be on Halloween and what everyone else in the family planned to wear to Grandpa's party. After dinner, Ethan helped Claire and their mom clear the table and wash the dishes, which felt completely natural. Previously, he would have complained loudly if asked to take anything other than his own plate to the kitchen. Once they finished, Mom gave Ethan an unexpected hug. "If this is how helpful you are in a dress, maybe I should put you in one every night," she teased. "Yeah," Claire chimed in. "You've never done that before. Maybe I should move my old clothes into your closet. Lord knows I could use the space." Mom hugged him again and kissed him on the head. "You know I'm just joking, right?" she said as she walked him into the family room. He looked up and shook his head, but her words stirred something inside him. While they sat watching television, Claire nudged their mom and pointed at Ethan's legs, which were spread open like a boy's. "Put your legs together, young lady," Mom said sharply. "Everyone can see your underwear." Ethan snapped his legs together and blushed. "Perhaps we'll need to practice again tomorrow." At bedtime, Ethan found himself regretting having to take off the dress, which surprised him. He had never thought wearing a dress would be fun, but it had been. There was something thrilling about it. As Claire removed his makeup, their mom instructed him to put the clothes back on in the morning. So he did. Claire caught him as he passed the bathroom. "If you're going to dress like a girl, you'd better look like one in case someone sees you through the window," she said. She quickly did a light makeup job on him, combed his hair, and sprayed it with hairspray. Out of spite, she doused him with perfume. He blinked in surprise but didn't protest. As he walked toward the kitchen for breakfast, he wondered why he hadn't objected. The last time she did that, he screamed and tried to wash it off. This time, he actually liked the scent that lingered around him. After breakfast, he cleared the table and helped Claire wash the dishes. His mother commented on how much help her part-time daughter had been. Ethan blushed at that. Dad remained quiet about the whole thing and left for his golf date just after breakfast. The rest of the day was spent video recording Ethan as he performed simple actions, followed by watching the tape and critiquing his movements. He would then try each action again. Dad came home around 4 p.m. and could only shake his head. In the evening, they eased up on him. Mom set up the video camera in the corner, aimed at the spot where Ethan usually sat, and turned it on. By bedtime, Ethan had nearly mastered the movements, but he still needed to concentrate on things like keeping his legs together. The following morning, he went to school as usual. Throughout the week, Dad made only one remark: "It's nice to have my son back again." I was starting to feel outnumbered over the weekend. On Friday, when he got home, his mother emerged from the kitchen. "Ethan, your sister and I were talking," she paused. "How confident do you feel about your princess costume?" "Okay, I guess." "Why?" "Well, I was watching the tape from Sunday night, and there are still some rough spots, most notably keeping your legs together and sitting down. Claire and I thought maybe you'd like to practice some more. What do you think?" "Well, I don't know. I thought I was doing pretty well. Why don't you watch the tape and decide?" Claire suggested. They headed to the family room, where Mom already had the tape queued up and started the VCR. As he watched himself moving around the room, he felt a flicker of the excitement from last weekend. At various points, Mom or Claire pointed out the little errors he made. By the end, he had to admit he wasn't as good as he had thought. Dad walked in near the end of their discussion. "Does that mean I'm going to be outnumbered again this weekend?" he asked. "Well, dear, you want Ethan to do really well, don't you? He wants to win the prize for best costume, and he needs to be exceptional for that." "Forget I asked." Dad was quiet during dinner. Afterward, Claire took Ethan upstairs and handed him a pile of clothes. He carried them to his room and placed them on top of his dresser, feeling a bit excited. He noticed that the dress was the shirtwaist style that required a slip, which made sense since the skirt was the same length as the one he planned to wear for Halloween. The next morning, he got up to get dressed and felt a little thrill of excitement. As he sorted through the clothes, he discovered that Claire had included a pair of panties. He took them across the hall and knocked on her door. "Yeah," she called from inside. He cracked the door and slid the panties through. "What's with these?" he asked pointedly. Claire appeared at the door, tying her robe. "I thought you might want to wear them. After all, you're going to wear everything else," she teased. "Really?" he replied, frowning. She smiled coyly. "I dare you. Get real." "What's the matter? Chicken?" "No. Double dare you. Dad would kill me. So, we won't tell him." "What about Mom?" "She doesn't need to know. I figured it would be an incentive for you to keep your legs together. Plus, your boxer shorts hang down a lot further. These will be easier to keep out of sight." Her logic was hard to argue with. "So, are you going to do it, or are you chicken?" she pressed. "I'm no chicken." "Enjoy," she said, closing the door. Ethan returned to his room, shaking as he put on the panties. His breath was labored for a moment, but he managed to calm down while buttoning up the dress. Just then, Claire knocked on the door. "Ready for makeup?" she called. Yeah, he replied, slipping his feet into the shoes. In the bathroom, Claire worked her magic on his face, even getting him to apply his own lipstick. As he leaned in toward the mirror, Claire lifted his dress and slip. "Hey," he exclaimed, jumping back. "What do you think you're doing? I just wanted to see if you were wearing the panties." "Well, I am," he said indignantly. "So I saw. Your butt looks cute in them." "Gee, thanks," he replied. "How would you feel if I did that to you?" "I'll do it for you," she said, turning around and briefly lifting her skirt to stick out her panted but before letting it fall. Turning back, she said, "There. Now we're even." Ethan spent the rest of the day practicing his feminine mannerisms. Claire was right. Wearing panties encouraged him to keep his legs together. At lunch, Mom complimented him on his improvement, and he blushed, thinking, if only she knew why. He was still working on his walk and hand movements, struggling particularly with the hand movements. He found it hard to focus. Every time he shifted his weight or walked, he was acutely aware of the panties, which made it difficult to concentrate on anything else. Dad spent the day in his workshop, making brief appearances only for coffee or to use the bathroom, even taking lunch out there. Ethan could tell he wasn't thrilled about his son wandering around in a dress, and he must have been tricked into agreeing to it. While washing off the makeup in the bathroom, Claire popped her head in and said, "I put some things on your bed for tomorrow." He went in to find the blue dress that Mom had picked out first, along with another pair of panties. He smiled, placing the panties on his dresser and hanging the dress in his closet. After getting undressed, he hung up the dress he had worn that day, putting the slip on a hook next to his bathrobe. He stripped off the panties and tossed them in the hamper, placing the bra on his dresser next to tomorrow's panties. The next morning, he woke up early, feeling excited. He jumped out of bed and smiled as he put on the panties and bra. The slip felt delightful against his skin. After putting on the dress, he managed to work the zipper and slipped into his shoes. He went to the bathroom and applied lipstick, brushing his hair when Claire came in. "Well, I see you're all set early. Lipstick and everything," she remarked as she reached for his dress. He quickly clamped his hand over his backside and said, "Yes, I'm wearing them." "Prove it," she challenged. He carefully lifted the side of the skirt enough to reveal the edge of his panties. Claire laughed and took over styling his hair. Once she finished, she convinced him to apply his own mascara. "You'll need to know how to touch it up on Friday," was her reasoning. She left him to get dressed while Ethan noticed her perfume on the counter. He picked it up and sprayed some behind each ear and on his wrists, mimicking what he had seen Claire do. Another day of practice passed with an absent dad, but by 4 p.m., Ethan had become a convincing girl. They watched the candid tape of the afternoon, which was not truly candid but rather captured from a corner to record Ethan's movements as naturally as possible. Mom and Claire found nothing to criticize. On Thursday night, Mom instructed Ethan to take a bath and wash his hair using Claire's shampoo and conditioner. He followed her instructions. The next morning, Claire woke him up early and told him to get dressed up to the slip and meet her in the bathroom. By now, fastening a bra was as easy as buttoning the waistband of his jeans. The panties she had given him for the day were red, adorned with large lace panels at each leg, featuring lace outlines of roses in black. He dropped the slip over his head and savored the way it slid down his body, nearly racing to the bathroom. Once there, Claire applied the heavy makeup she had done 2 weeks earlier. She adorned him with the necklace and bracelet before turning her head slightly, wearing a mischievous smile, and picking up the perfume. She gave him a questioning nod. His heart raced a little, and he shook his head. Then he tilted his head back as she sprayed his neck on either side. He held out his wrist for her to spray, rubbing the scent against the other one. Finally, she sprayed the back of each knee, then reached up and sprayed the pulse point above each elbow. They went to her room and retrieved the dress. Ethan glanced outside and noticed a heavy frost. "It's cold out. I hope my legs don't freeze. If I were you, I'd wear pantyhose." He inhaled sharply. "Pantyhose? Sure, why not? If you wear skin-colored ones, most people won't even notice." After a heart-pounding pause, he agreed. She got out a sheer-to-the-waist pair and helped him get started, but insisted he pull them up once they reached his knees, explaining that he needed to know how to do it if he had to go to the bathroom. Eventually, he managed to put them on and slipped into the dress. Claire handed him a white wool cape and a red purse that matched his shoes. After a quick breakfast, Mom offered to drive him to school. Riding his bike like usual wouldn't be an option. As they headed out the door, Claire caught their mother's attention. Mom motioned for him to get into the car while she stayed behind to see what Claire wanted. Looking into the garage to ensure Ethan wasn't listening, Claire whispered excitedly, "I dared Ethan to wear panties, and he did it." "You did what?" Mom asked, surprised. "Well, I figured he needed an incentive to keep his legs together, so I dared him to wear panties." "He took the dare. Oh my God. I hope he keeps his legs together." "You'd better hope none of the guys catch him in the bathroom and lift his dress to see what he's wearing underneath. He was worried about his legs getting cold, so I gave him a pair of pantyhose to wear too." "Claire, do you realize what kind of teasing he'll endure if anyone finds out? He's young. He'll get over it. Besides, after all the trouble he's caused me these past couple of years, he can handle a little teasing. By rights, I should bring him back in here and make him take that stuff off. But he would be mortified if he knew I knew. If anything comes of this, you are in serious trouble, young lady," she warned before heading into the garage. At school, 2 friends waited for him. He had confided in them, and they each bet him $5 that he would chicken out. His mother let him out of the car at the main entrance, and Bill and Mike didn't recognize him as he stepped out. He almost chickened out when he saw them standing by the door and turned to tell his mom to take him home, but she had already driven off. Unable to get her attention without yelling, he took a deep breath, set his chin, and put on his best girl walk as he approached the door without making eye contact. As he walked past, he heard Mike say to Bill, "Who do you think she is?" Bill replied, "I don't know, but I'm definitely going to find out." Ethan stifled a laugh. By the time he reached the door, he was shaking with laughter and had to grab the doorframe to steady himself. Regaining a bit of composure, he turned to his friends and said, "If either of you makes a pass at me, I'll deck you." Bill and Mike blinked in surprise and exchanged glances. "Milt?" Mike asked in disbelief. "It's me." "Oh my God," Bill exclaimed. "I think I'm going to be sick. I thought you were the best-looking girl in school. I was going to ask you to be my girlfriend." "Milt, I still can't believe it's you. You really look like a girl. But now that I look closely, it really is you." Ethan extended his hand and said, "Pay up. I'm here and in the costume I promised to wear." Mike and Bill both reached into their wallets and handed him $5 each. Just then, the bell rang, and the 3 of them headed to class. Bill was dressed in a predictable hobo outfit, wearing a pair of his dad's jeans held up with a rope, an old pair of shoes, a crumpled hat, and a ragged shirt. Mike was dressed as a pirate, complete with a large-brimmed black hat, a white shirt, black pants, boots, and a wooden sword tucked into his wide belt. Compared to his costume, Mike and Bill's outfits seemed lame. He felt confident he would win if this was the kind of competition he was up against. In class, the teacher called roll, assessing each student's costume as he announced their names. When he reached Ethan, he said, "Ethan Baker?" "Here." Mr. Larson looked up, surprised. "Ethan Baker?" "Here." Mr. Larson shook his head in disbelief and continued with the roll. The class buzzed with whispers about Ethan's costume. The schedule included morning classes followed by a big afternoon party in the gymnasium. Mr. Larson's 7th grade English and Social Studies class felt almost pointless. He managed to assign some homework for Monday, but that was about it. When the lunch bell rang, everyone crowded around Ethan. All the kids wanted to know if it was really him, whose clothes he was wearing, and who did his makeup. It took nearly half of the lunch period for Ethan to make it to the cafeteria. While he ate, he was treated like the most popular kid in school. Even the 8th graders paid him attention, especially the girls. The boys, however, avoided him like the plague, none of them wearing costumes. After lunch, they reported to their first class for roll call before gathering in the gymnasium. At first, there was the usual clustering of groups, but then the principal used the PA system to announce the afternoon activities. There would be apple bobbing, a tug of war, an ongoing dance in one corner, and at 2:30, the costume judging would begin. All those in costumes were to line up and walk in front of the faculty, who would rate their costumes on a scale of 1 to 10. The 5 students with the highest scores would then present themselves for the final judging. Ethan didn't want to bob for apples since it might ruin his makeup. He couldn't participate in the tug of war in high heels, and he certainly didn't want to dance, so he chose to sit on the sidelines and watch everyone else. Every 7th and 8th grade girl who passed by complimented him on his costume, while the 6th grade girls gathered in small groups, looking at him. Ethan made the mistake of drinking a lot of spiced apple cider. He headed to the hall, aiming for the bathroom. As he approached the boys' room, the janitor stopped him. "Aren't you heading to the wrong restroom? You want the one over there," he said, pointing across the hall to the girls' room. Embarrassed, Ethan nervously made his way to the girls' room. Inside, he quickly entered a stall and locked the door. He hiked up his dress and pulled down his pantyhose and panties, reminding himself to sit in case someone else came in. While he struggled to pull his panties back up, another girl entered. Panic surged through him. His hands shook as he tried 3 times to get his pantyhose right. Luckily, she went to a stall just as he finished. Ethan quickly exited the stall and hurried to the hall, almost running to the gym. Soon, the costume judging began. It took nearly half an hour for everyone to announce their name, receive a number, and walk in front of the panel of judges. Finally, the results were tabulated, and the finalists were announced. Ethan was thrilled to be among them, competing against a harem girl, a magician, an Indian chief, and a firefighter. During the final judging, each contestant had to give their name, grade, and a brief description of how they created their costume. The harem girl was an 8th grader named Patricia Lucas. Her costume was part of the wardrobe for a community play where her mother served as the costume mistress. The Indian chief was a 6th grader named Johnny Wolf, who was 1/4 Sioux. His war bonnet had belonged to his great-great-grandfather, and his mother made his imitation buckskin shirt and pants. The firefighter was a 7th grade boy whose father was a fireman. He provided his son with a real turnout coat, rubber boots, and a helmet. The magician was a 6th grade boy who had always been passionate about magic and could perform a few tricks. His mother had rented a tuxedo and top hat for him. When Ethan announced his name, every staff member looked up and scrutinized him closely as he explained that the dress and jewelry belonged to his sister and that she had done his makeup and hair. After a brief conference among the staff, he was invited to join them. Here, he was questioned about his identity. Mr. Larson explained that Ethan was indeed in his class. Although he couldn't say that Ethan looked exactly like himself, there was a resemblance, and it was unmistakably Ethan's voice. They thanked him and dismissed him. Shortly afterward, the winners were announced. The harem girl placed 4th, the firefighter was 3rd, the Indian chief took 2nd, and the magician was first runner-up. Ethan was declared the grand prize winner. Principal Mrs. Melveck told him that his princess costume was impressive enough to land him in the finals when most of the staff thought he was a girl. Once they were convinced he was a boy, the question became, where did the rest of the group rank? Ethan was the clear winner. Ethan's mother picked him up from school at 3:45. "How did it go?" she asked. "Terrific. A lot of people thought I was really a girl. Mike and Bill didn't recognize me until I spoke to them. They thought I would look really dorky if I went through with it." "Did you win the costume contest?" "I sure did," he replied, showing her his certificate and the small scarecrow trophy. "Well, there's just the family party and trick-or-treating tomorrow, and then you can go back to being a full-time boy." They rode the rest of the way in silence. When they reached the garage, his mother turned to him and said, "To be honest, I think I'll miss my part-time daughter. It was fun teaching you how to be a girl. What did you think of it?" "Overall, it was fun. It was a lot of work, but I enjoyed it. What about Claire? Did she do anything or ask you to do anything you didn't like? She probed. Ethan shrugged. No, I felt a little strange at first, but I got used to it. He had to admit to himself that in the last 3 weeks, he and Claire had gotten along better than ever. She used to annoy him on weekends when she had nothing else to do. Inside, Ethan ran over to Claire and gave her a big hug. Thanks for doing such a great job. I won the Best Costume Award. See, he said, showing her his certificate and trophy. He stayed in costume until after dinner. By 8 p.m., he was exhausted and ready for bed. It had been an exciting day.